What's in your diary?
What's in your diary?
What's in your diary?
What's in your? Hey, diary dolls, it's your girl Ty, and I just want to welcome you to the It's Not Your Diary podcast. Hey to all my diary dolls. I hope everybody's doing great. I hope your diaries are looking great. I hope the journaling went great from last week. I hope you all are really in a place where you can forgive whoever hurt you. Because our questions from last week, I hope you really dove deep on those. And now you're really getting into that spirit where you can truly forgive them or consider it or just think about it. And it might have brought up some feelings, but that's okay. We like to be in touch. This whole podcast is really to help us get in touch with our feelings and who we are, and to get more into our feelings, because I feel like society nowadays is trying to take us so far out of our feelings, and also the pills and all of the illnesses that are out here. And if we could really self-assess our emotions and really dig deep into those small issues that we have with people, this is just one step. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to message me, to email me. You can follow us at It's Not Your Diary Pod on Instagram and on Twitter. So yeah, reach out to me. Anything you need, just let me know. Any questions. Now let's get into this show. It's episode 3, and I'm super excited for this episode because it's kind of different from what I've normally been doing. And I'll probably be trying a few different things so I can kind of get a feel for what I really, or what God really needs this podcast to be for you all. So if I can help in any way, or if you have any suggestions, if you've prayed about it, just let me know. So today's episode is gonna be on patience, which is, I know, a super important topic for me, just because, and there's a reason why I wanted to do this episode. I've been praying and fasting and really just thinking about what is on my mind, what am I really feeling that needs to be said. I've been seeing a lot on social media, and it's a lot of just misleading. It's so hard, and I want to focus for this episode. There's different types of patience, but for this episode I really want to focus on patience, but then also I just want to share a story with you all. So bear with me and let's get into this. Patience is actually something that I've really been struggling with, like from the beginning of time, since my birth. That date at May 3rd, 1993, since that day is something that I've really been struggling with, but I didn't realize this until I got into my relationship that I've been in now for almost 11 years on December 2nd. And it's something that I didn't really see. I mean, of course, when I'm driving as well, I have no patience. Like, the devil really gets to me when I'm driving. I'm like, get out of my way. I got somewhere to be. I don't want to be in a car. I don't want to be in traffic. I feel like I'm wasting my time. So I get really impatient when I'm driving. But this year, let me tell y'all, I've made a complete, I'll say a 180. I haven't made a 360. I haven't turned it all the way around. I still have my slip ups. I'm not perfect, but I am working on it. I'm really working on it. So I do have a definition here, and I was just looking over it because today I was thinking like, oh, I won't bring definitions. They're probably like, this girl is crazy. Why is she bringing these definitions? But I just want to show y'all how when we need something, like in life, whenever we need anything, we literally go to Google. We Google everything. So I just want to bring to you all the definition of patience from Google means able to accept or tolerate delays, problems, or suffering without being annoyed or anxious. This definition, I didn't discriminate at all. I appreciate it because it is real, it is true. And I have my spiritual definition, which is the attitude while you wait for God to do the thing you've been praying for. And when I heard that definition, all I could hear God say was check your attitude. I would say since 2017, my patience has really been tested. I went through, I would say, one of the bigger life changes in 2017. And I would say since then, my patience has been one thing that I'm really, really working on. And I know I did have some people reach out to me just saying, like, can you go into what brought me full circle to start the podcast? Because I did mention on episode 1 that my son had been in the NICU. So I did get a few people reach out to me just wondering what happened. And so on this episode, I won't go into too much depth, but I will get into an episode on that, and I will do a deep dive into exactly what happened, but I'm not sure how I'll tie that back in. But I do want to say the amount of patience that I had to have in that situation. It was a situation where they didn't really know what was wrong with him, and we were just in the hospital. So we were there for 2 months, and for the first 3 weeks they had no clue what was wrong. Well, they had some clue. They thought it was meconium aspiration, and it ended up being something completely different, which he had to have surgery for. So basically, we were waiting for his lungs to start working normally, and we were told it'll happen within the next week. We were told this every week for the first 3 weeks. And if you ever been in a situation, you know how hard that is. And then once we got to the 3rd week, we got a new doctor. Well, after the 3rd week, so the 4th week, we got a new doctor. He went in, ran some tests. He said this should not be taking as long as it is. It was the patience that was. And sometimes that's what it takes. It takes something super traumatic to get you in that place where God can really reach you, and that's where I was. It's like sometimes we get so wrapped up in like all the worldly things and everything that's going on around us and all the people in our lives and what they're doing, and we get so invested in everything else that it's like we sometimes forget to be patient, or to keep that mindset or that attitude while you wait for God, while you're being patient, while you're praying. The attitude that you have is really what patience is. Like, you might be saying you're being patient, but are you really sitting down and just being patient? Are you being still, or are you complaining all the time? And now that I can reflect on everything, it was like, well, I might have said I was being patient, but I was frustrated. I was complaining. And then, once I started really studying my word and I really got into who I was as a child of God, I would pray and just listen to gospel music and just sit. And then that's when I heard God say patience. And that's literally all he's been saying to me since March. Well, I would say like around April or March of this year until now is patience. And it wasn't the fact that you're waiting on something. He wasn't telling me to just wait. He was telling me to check my attitude, to correct the attitude. Yeah, you say you're being patient, but how's your attitude? How are you treating people? How are you talking to people? The people that have frustrated you. So that brings me to my next point, and this one I'm going to be extremely transparent here, and I'm going to be extremely open. In order to reach my peace of mind, I really had to go through all these emotions. And one of the things, like my relationship, I would say since 2017, since the big topic or the big issue happened, I have been going through a lot in my relationship. Like my relationship has been on the rocks. Now we've been together for almost 11 years this year, and our relationship has just been so rocky. We've been in premarital counseling now for over a year. And like relationships aren't easy, and I feel like we have to take the stigma that they're gonna be easy, and that if this person doesn't know how to love me, then I shouldn't be with them, and that people should know how to love me. And it all comes back to patience. Like we really have to be aware of what we're putting out. And I feel like people, they want everything now, and instant gratification is like tearing this world apart. We want everything now. I want this person now. They need to do this now. And if they don't do it, they can go. Well, when you're building something, like nothing, and I think that's what people think, everything's going to come easy. And if it don't come easy, then I don't need it. But what I've learned is, like, over these past few years is that if it don't come easy, then you on the right track. If you working hard, anything that takes work is gonna give you the best reward. Anything that you're investing in is gonna give you the best return on your investment. Like, you have to take the stigma out that this is so hard, that means I can't do it. Like, how do you think, like, Bill Gates, Jay-Z, everyone, like, these people worked hard, and maybe it's important to listen to how some of the millionaires became millionaires. Yes, we all have to work hard, and we all have to be patient, but it comes down to the patience, because you might not get it right the first time, but you have to work towards getting it right the second time. But if you don't have that patience, you're just gonna give up. And that's what I just see a lot of my friends, they just give up. And I try to tell them, like, you can't just give up. You can't, especially on your family. And this is one reason why I know God put this on my heart, because it's something that I've fought hard for. Like, we have fought for our relationship, and our relationship to this day is a work in progress. And guess what? Our marriage is going to be a work in progress, because where we're trying to go, a lot of people have not been. And yes, a lot of people always say, well, it's already like y'all are married. And I'm like, it is, but you also have to understand how we got to the point that we're at now, and it's patience. So, a little more in depth on what happened. There was, I'm not going to say infidelity because we're not married, but there was situations that transpired that had to do with another or other people being let into our relationship, who I would say started off as friends on one side, or friends on both sides. This was a friend of our relationship, and at a time when our relationship was so vulnerable, after we had been so strong, like 2017, our relationship was rock solid. Nobody could tear it apart. Things transpired that I'm not yet ready to talk about on the podcast, but I know I will open up soon, because I know so many people can relate. But once things transpired in January, we were forced to make a number of decisions. Like, a lot of things started happening, but it was like, at that moment, we turned to everyone else but each other, and we weren't patient with each other. After this, I would say our foundation, this was God showing us that our foundation wasn't strong enough. So he had to tear it up. When I tell you, he tore up the entire foundation of our relationship and what we built, but it was well needed, because when I tell you now, our foundation is rock solid. We don't got no cracks. We ain't missing nothing. Okay, our foundation is put together, it's dry, it's ready. Okay, the first floor is going up, we got the baseboards going down. Like, our foundation of our home, I think now has been solidified, and I can only thank God for that. So, once the devil came in, God allowed him to come in and shake it up. He said, well, you go ahead, because the foundation not strong enough. If when turmoil comes, they turn to everybody else but each other. They talk to everybody else but each other. So at this point, someone else was able to come into my situation and play me for him, because of a number of reasons that I'm still not even 100% sure about, and it doesn't really matter to me. But at that time, a lot of my friends, because I was turning to everybody else but God, but him, I turned to my friends, and their advice was immediately thinking like, oh, you should leave him, you deserve better, which I did deserve better. But I didn't fully agree with the fact that I should leave him, because it was like, we built this thing and I need to understand. And I do think this is a very, very sensitive topic, because a lot of times women try to understand the problem and try to change for another person, when really I wasn't trying to understand for myself specifically, but I was trying to understand for the foundation of our relationship. When did that first crack get there, and how didn't I see it? That's what I was really trying to understand, but at the time, I couldn't explain that to my friends. And nobody told me to have patience, figure it out. Have patience, figure it out. No one told us what to do. So I had to figure out what to do. My first instinct was to listen, because maybe I haven't been listening. I really had to self-assess and look at myself and be like, okay, but this took so much patience, because it's so easy to leave. And I remember I told somebody, I'm like, it's easy to leave. It's so easy to not have to deal with it. It's so easy to push it behind the rug. It's so easy for me to go be with someone else. It's so easy. And we were at a place where I was like pulling back. Like, I pulled back, and because I knew something wasn't right, so I pulled back. But then we had to come back together, because at the end of the day, we are best friends. We need to figure out what's going on. And for a long time, it just felt like it couldn't be rekindled. Like, it was like, do I really want to do this? Like, because I know it's going to be so hard, because we've been in a tough place before, and that was hard. So I know this is going to be harder, because I know God's tests just get tougher and we have to get stronger. And that's where I was with it. And then at this point, I felt like I couldn't really turn to my friends anymore for advice. I could only confide in them to vent. I just need to say a few quick words and then go on about my day. But I felt like the first time I tried to turn to them to confide in them, the response I got, I'm like, well, I can't turn to people who've never really been in my shoes. I need to go to somebody who has. That person recommended premarital counseling, so I could realize, like, where are we going? Are we going to get married, or are we not? So we did that. We did it with the church at first, and it was great. It was like a 3-day thing. We loved it. And then a few months later, I would just say, as 2017 went on, I just kind of realized that things weren't adding up, that the actions still seemed the same, because, he was in deep. He was in really deep, and he was never honest about it, and I could never see where I fell short. I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it because in a lot of ways, I don't think I really wanted to see it. I just kind of thought it would just eventually go away when really like there were underlying issues that we really had to break up. So that first premarital course, it just shook it up a little bit. It just shook up the relationship a little bit. It got us kind of on a better track, but not really. And little did I know, this would be the start of like the hardest next few months or years of my life. I didn't know that. So that next year, 2018 in March, we started premarital counseling. A lot of what our relationship was built on was our friendship. Like, this was my best friend, so I was always patient with him regardless of everything else that we had been through. And then it got to a point where I would pray on it. I would say, God, if this is not for me, Lord, show me. Like, I'm not trying to be here if this is not what you have meant to be. And at this time, I did pray. I prayed all the time. I still could hear from God, but I wasn't quite sure, I would say, as I'm sure now. Like, now I trust everything he says, but then I was a little skeptical. So I would pray, and especially when bad things happen, which is terrible. And I would always pray, God, just show me a sign, show me a sign. And then I would wake up the next morning and I have like this huge apology. I would have like all these things. So this was God's sign. Like, this is his flat out sign. Like, okay, he's showing me that this is a man I'm supposed to be with. But then if I turn to my friends after certain things happen, it's like, okay, they don't think I should be with this person. But they're not going off who God is. They're not praying, asking God, well, what should she do? You have to go to God yourself. You have to be patient yourself. You have to seek what you need in this world. You cannot confide in your friends. And friends are amazing. They're great. I love all of my friends to death. I really, 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 really do. But I also think there's a thin line between a friend and a therapist, because when you go to your friends all the time with your problems, you're putting all your stuff on them when they have all their own stuff. So be wary that your friends might not be able to hold everything, and you might have to go to therapy because that just might be what you have to do, and that's okay. But like I was saying, so yeah, I would pray, and like this would happen whenever we had a scuff, issue. I would always pray and just say, God, show me. You have to show me, because I'm 1 foot out the door and I'm 1 foot in, and I'm a hand. I'm doing the whole hand out, foot out. I'm running, but then I got 1 foot still in the door. I'm trying to leave, but I don't know if I should leave. And every time God told me to stay. And every time he would always say, like, this is your husband. And I'm just like, well, why, why am I dealing with all of this? And I'm questioning him. And my attitude is terrible. Like, he like, I showed you exactly what you needed, and then you still questioning everything that I am. And I think that is something that I'm super disappointed in myself that I did. But it's like a learning experience. This is why it's so important to really have that relationship with God, because a lot of times, we look at Google, we go to our friends, we go to our parents, and these people, they can all give you their honest opinion. Like, I can give you my honest opinion, but I'm giving you my honest opinion based off of what I've been through and based off of the mistakes that I've made. So please don't do as I do. Do as I say. Really think about your relationship with God, and really think about the place and the space that you're in right now, and really pay attention to how you respond when different things happen. Like when you don't get that job you want, or when your relationship is a little sour. Really self-assess and see, where is my attitude? Where is my attitude? I'm complaining about their attitude. I'm complaining about what's not being done for me. Where is your attitude? Where do you stand? Are you doing everything you could do to make the situation better? Or are you just complaining about the situation? Did you do everything you could do to get that job? Did you look like the best candidate? Like, things happen, and we always try to point the finger. We always have an attitude. We always are quick to leave. We always are quick to judge, and we are so quick to turn everything around and to be so snappy and to be so spiteful and to be so evil when God is just asking us to be patient. Be patient with the people in your life. And I'll just give you a little more insight to where we are now. My relationship is great. We still have a lot of issues. We still argue. We don't get into fights, but we still have disagreements. We are still babies at this relationship thing because we started all over. We never broke up, but we started all over from scratch in 2017. And we really have built a solid foundation. And this past weekend, I got to see that. I got to see this past week how far we've come and how delicate we are with each other now. Even though we still make mistakes, even though we might not do everything the way each other want each other to, even though we have so much learning to do, we have really been there for each other. And when things go wrong, we've done very well turning to each other to communicate to each other first before we go out to the world. And, it's still good to let your friends into your life, because I feel like if you don't tell them anything, then it's like kind of like they don't know anything that you're going through, so they don't know anything about you really. And it's kind of like they become distant. But to keep those friendships together, it's okay. Like, everybody is not going to understand where you are. Everybody is not going to have the same amount of patience that you have. But it's so good to practice it, because one day you're going to be in a situation where you're forced to be patient. And that's just such a hard thing to deal with when you haven't already been practicing patience. I heard this quote: sometimes people like to put you in a box for their comfort, and you spend the rest of your life living up to what they say you can do. And I really think this is important, because it's like we care so much about other people's opinions, and people just posting all this negative stuff on Twitter. Like, I saw a post, and I believe it said, if you don't know how to love me, I'm not gonna show you. And it's just like, I think people just get this idea. Like, me and my boyfriend, like, we've been together for almost 11 years. So, no, we didn't know how to love each other. We didn't even know what love was. He was just my best friend. So now that we're adults, we have to figure out how to love each other. We have to figure out what we need. And it's like you see things like that, and then it gets into your subconscious. And then it's like that becomes who you are. And if you don't have that spirit to discern what's real and what's not, there's a lot of fake opinions or fake news or fake rules that if this person isn't this, then I have to leave, because we don't have the patience to deal with people. We don't have the patience to go to the gym and eat healthy. We don't have the patience to do anything nowadays. We literally need everything right here, right now, today. And I completely understand it, because in so many ways, that's who I am. Of course, I don't want to wait to be able to invest in properties. But right now, I'm in a waiting season. Guess what? God said you're going to wait, so I'm going to wait. And when you get in that spirit of living in your own world or living in the real world, you don't have that type of clock ticking in your mind saying, I need to be patient. Oh, what time is it? Okay, well, it's still time to be patient. sometimes we really go off everything worldly, and it's so dangerous because if we chose to do everything the world told us to do, we would go to school, go to college, go work somewhere for 50 years and then retire and then die. You know, if we listen to the world standards, you have to set your own standards. My standard for my relationship was I'm going to listen to God, because God telling me this my husband. He not acting like he my husband, but God told me he's my husband. So guess what? He's my husband. Regardless of how he acts, I'm going to turn to God first, because this is his child and he controls him, and he the one that told me to be patient. So I have to listen to him regardless. It might not look the way you want it to look. It might not act the way you want it to act. It might not smell the way you want it to smell. God told me that's a chicken, and it looked like an alligator, but he told me that's a chicken. So guess what? It's a chicken, regardless of what the world says it is. I have to trust him, because there's a reason why he's telling me that. He's not just telling me so that I could ignore him. He's not just telling me so I can be defensive, so I can try to defend myself, so I can try to plead my case. He wants me to trust him and trust that what he's saying is true. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. And I want you to dig deep. Once again, get out those journals and get ready for your journal assignment. So this week we actually have a prayer that I want you all to write down, that you can pray whenever you feel like you need it. And it goes like this. Heavenly Father, there are so many things that I want right now, and I know that's not right. I know that I have to be willing to wait. I'm sorry that there are so many things in my life that I have to be willing to wait for. Put me in a spirit of patience so I can wait for the things in life that you would have me wait for. Amen. So I know this episode was kind of long, and I'm sorry about that. I went a little overtime with my story, but I just want to say that I hope you all were able to pull different things from my story and really understand that everything is not going to happen on our time, and sometimes we have to give grace to those around us, and we have to turn to God and not to the world. And so that's it for this episode. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And I can actually let you all know that next week our episode is going to be on peace of mind and all the pain that comes from that, because you know we trying to build that generational healing, and if we have the information, we can approach the situations differently. So y'all tune in next week, same time, same day. I'll talk to y'all next week. Bye bye.